Hello, Peter47890/Sirus here, and welcome to another episode of Sirus Gaming Corner, a gaming podcast where I, Swordfish1390, and Forest Reviews talk about various gaming topics. From old games to new games, everything is fair game as far as discussion goes. So how are you guys' evening so far?
Doing good, always glad to be back on.
Doing pretty good.
So, we've been doing this podcast for over a year now?
That is nuts.
Yeah. I didn't even realize it was a year until just checking the date. But yeah. So for today's anniversary, I guess we should talk about basically games that have left a huge impact for us, ranging from games that's our favorite, games that we grew up with and have nostalgia with, games that introduced us to the genres that we're pretty fond of, and just stuff like that. We're all pretty much big RPG fans, I think. I think that's pretty apparent, right? Right?
I would hope so at this point.
Yeah.
So, what would you say is the game that made you into an RPG fan, then?
For me, what started for me was Final Fantasy X, way back when I was 8 years old when it first came out. We had just gotten a PS2, not long after it came out, and my dad bought it, and he would play it every day. We'd have it plugged, our PlayStation 2 plugged in our living room, and I would just sit down on the floor and just watch for hours. And because at the time I had never seen that kind of game before. I'd never seen a turn-based battle system before. The watching characters just stand there and then having to pick up from a list how you perform your actions, that was so new to me, and I was so enamored with how different it was. And then as a kid, I didn't know what the hell I was looking at. I didn't understand the battle system, or I didn't understand the sphere grid. And it was cool too because I'd never seen a game focus so much on its story before either. I never sat down and watched cutscenes for as long as I have. That was also really new to me, and I was drawn into it. And then that was kind of the catalyst. And what really solidified my love for RPGs was a couple years later, Kingdom Hearts came out, and I got that as a birthday gift. And I was, little older, little, easier, little more grasp on how to play games like that. And Kingdom Hearts was just user-friendly enough and, targeted towards a younger audience that I was able to grasp the mechanics well enough. And it was the first RPG I played and finished with minimal help. And after I finished that game, I was yeah, I'm a big RPG fan. So that was kind of how I got into the genre. What about you, Forrest?
Yeah.
Well, might have started for me in 1990, probably 1998 or 1999. At the time, I was only playing a lot of platformers and driving games. That's sort of what I grew up with. That was mostly what I played. And so for me, the first game that actually came to be the experience that got me into RPGs was Final Fantasy VII, when a friend of mine in high school gave it to me. He didn't personally like the game, so he was like, "You can have it." And I took it home, and the first time I actually played the game, I thought it was one of the worst games I ever played because I didn't understand the concept of just pushing buttons in a menu and selecting it, and that's all you did. So I was more used to playing games where you have full control of characters moving around and stuff. So it was sort of an initial disappointment, and thinking, I see why my friend didn't like the game, and I shelved it for about a year. And it wasn't until one day I just had this epiphany to just give it another shot. So I played it again. I guess more or less not having a game manual to understand what to do was probably the worst thing, because he didn't have the case and the manual to it anymore. So it was hard to know what to do. I just sort of had to figure it out. And I realized that it was more to it than just selecting a bunch of words on a screen and just pushing circle. In fact, it was more like a character evolving and leveling up. And then having a story that I thought at first was sort of random. A guy jumped off a train. You know what I mean? I didn't really understand what was going on, but eventually seeing these duos going and fighting in Midgar and going up against this huge corporation, the story just sort of got better and better. I think what really made me solidify myself liking the game and eventually liking RPGs was that fight where you're going down the elevator fighting that mech thing on the side of the building. All this chaos going on, and like it sort of just, I never experienced anything like that before. And getting to play Final Fantasy IX, a couple of years or a year or so later, absolutely love that game. So much so that it's still considered my favorite RPG of all time. And really, that's what kind of pushed me towards RPGs from that point forward, was just having the exposure to Final Fantasy VII and eventually Final Fantasy IX solidifying my liking to RPGs.
Okay, I guess it's my turn now. It's strangely similar to like Sword Story, in that the game that made me into an RPG fan is probably Final Fantasy X in the PS2. Strangely enough, though, that wasn't the first RPG or Final Fantasy game that I played before that. The first Final Fantasy game I actually played was like Final Fantasy Tactics. But back when I was a kid, I usually didn't play RPGs. I just played Final Fantasy Tactics just because I somehow got the game and I really liked it. But I never played any other RPGs after it, I guess, except for Final Fantasy VIII, which I played to like Ifrit and then quit. But besides that, I didn't really play any. I played mostly platformers and action adventure games like Mario, Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Banjo-Kazooie, that sort of games. In fact, I probably played my Nintendo 64 more than I ever did my PlayStation. Even though I did play my PlayStation quite often, just to play Final Fantasy Tactics, but still. But then it's when I play Final Fantasy X where I really got hooked into the genre itself. There's something about that game that really got me hooked, whether it was story or the turn-based combat being pretty engaging, and I really did like the leveling system and how you did felt stronger. Then you at least had the illusion that you had some choice in the progression system via the sphere grid, and the music and the graphics, I thought it was really cool. And that game was the basically gateway drug to get me to try a variety of RPGs from there on. And then afterwards, I tried Dark Cloud, Tales of, which you probably guessed just from our past episodes that I'm a big fan of. Strangely enough, even though people say this is a classic, I never have tried a Dragon Quest game. And I'm not even that big of a Final Fantasy fan, even though Final Fantasy X was the gateway drug for me.
Yeah, I feel like Final Fantasy for a lot of people was kind of the gateway too, like in general. Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy whatever, that's kind of the go-to series.
Yeah. Usually see these people being huge fans of the Final Fantasy series and playing a lot of the games. But I haven't really. I've only played some of the older Final Fantasies in recent years. Like Final Fantasy 7 original.
I guess the question now is, what are the games now that's getting people into RPGs? Would Final Fantasy still be that go-to game for modern gamers?
Yeah, I guess that depends on what they're exposed to, I guess. I mean, like, Tales is becoming pretty big now, so that could potentially start getting newer people into the genre.
What about the Atelier games? I mean, Ryza 1 and 2 have been really, really popular.
I guess. But
yeah,
I still probably wouldn't say they're mainstream yet.
Yeah, they're a little too niche right now. Yeah. Like Tales was pretty niche for a while, but it really started to erupt after, a number of years.
What about
the two major franchises that I think is going to garner a lot of attention is probably Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy still.
I think Persona's taking that lead now, with Persona 5 and Persona 4 going to Steam.
Persona as well. Especially since Persona now overshadows Shin Megami Tensei.
Let's not forget Nocturne re-release and the new Shin Megami 5 coming out. So I mean, it'll be curious to see what is getting people into JRPGs nowadays, because you don't really hear. We know about our exposure to it, but it'd be cool to see what's exposure for now in terms of that. Because now what would be interesting is if what we're talking about right now, and a lot of people like, oh no, I play the old Final Fantasies because it's so much better. That's what got me exposed to it. I'm like, of course.
What would you say is your favorite game of all time?
Ooh.
Well, I just spoiled mine already, Final Fantasy 9. I mean, that's my favorite Final Fantasy game.
I mean, of all time, like even like crossing genres.
Okay, so this is on the spot. So this could change tomorrow because it's sort of hard. Let's see. So a game that really I thought just blew my mind, all time RPG, would be Persona 3, the original Persona 3. I just love it's just the like sadness of the world and the impending end of the world, and like the characters feeling defeated at one point, not knowing what to do, and the main character having to sacrifice himself to save everyone, not just himself but everybody. I just thought the game overall was just next level to me. Because as I mentioned before, when I played Final Fantasy, at some point, that's all I played. But that game just gave me a defining moment of what to expect out of JRPGs, right? So, yeah, I'd say Persona 3, without a doubt, still to this day, is probably my all-time favorite. Just because of its impact, its characters, its world, the dark tone, the sadness of everything, And it's sort of like feeling of not being able to save the one person that everybody wanted to save. It was sort of saddening in the end.
For me, I would probably say, strangely enough, again, like I said, I'm not a huge Final Fantasy fan, but my favorite game is probably Final Fantasy Tactics.
I would have went with 9, but I can understand why Tactics would be on that list. I've yet to beat Tactics because I thought the game was difficult.
Final Fantasy Tactics is just so good.
No, I'm not denying it. I just always had I've always had issues trying to beat it. I thought the game was hard. Even back when I played it when it first came out, like the beginning tutorial is like, it gets you to the point you learn the game. You get to that first like where you're truly on your own, and you're like, oh my god, the game kicks your butt. Yeah.
I just had so much fun playing Final Fantasy Tactics when I was a kid. Just remember a lot of times where I would just like build, like I think the unit building in that game is really, really good. There's lots of options, lots of classes, and there's so much customization that you can make a unit truly your own. Even though
I'm amazed.
Even though the game does have unique units that are probably stronger than the units you can build, aka CG Sid, but the game is like there's so much options that it's a lot of fun just building your character the way you want to, and like the leveling also felt pretty satisfying, especially when you're leveling up your job level. And how leveling up these specific job levels, these different jobs, unlock another one, which allows you to experiment with that one. And there's like a lot of unit building in that game, which is a lot of fun. And I think the overall map design was pretty good too at the time.
I'm actually amazed you was able to beat that game as a kid, because
And I think the story was also really, really good in that game too. Especially like the political intrigue aspect to it, of Ramza being branded as a heretic for trying to do the right thing. And then you see the real history behind how Ramza is like the true hero, and how the leader was using Ramza and just manipulating stuff in the back become this benevolent king he tried to build himself up to the public.
There is a question about regarding that game. Now, you remember what was the what is that recent demo on the Switch? Was a game called Triangle Strategy? What was that?
Triangle Strategy.
Do you think that game has any way of being similar, or at least meeting your expectations in that regard when it comes to the sort of strategical maneuvering?
I made a video on my impressions of Triangle Strategy before, but to basically shortly recap it, I do think it does have the potential to be the next Final Fantasy. Even though I say it could be the next Final Fantasy Tactics, but it shares elements from both Final Fantasy Tactics and Tactics Ogre. But,
so it's a game that could be that game you haven't had a feel for in a long time since Tactics, right?
Yeah. It depends on how the class building options are, because from what we've seen in the demo, there wasn't really much class changing to do. Each character was their own individual unit that you use. But even if it doesn't have the class building options, I think how Triangle Strategy implement these units is interesting, because each unit feels like their own thing. They feel like their own essence.
You know, for what it's worth, hearing you about Tactics has always made me want to go back and play it, because I've always had this notion that it needed to be beaten, because I've always liked the game. I was always just intimidated by its difficulty in a way.
I mean, yeah, it can be difficult. Well, I can understand that. But I think there's a lot of fun in just like the story. The music is especially beautiful. And I think the gameplay was what got me back into Final Fantasy Tactics so many times throughout the years. I just really love the class system in the game, and how customizable it is, and just how broken the game can be if you build it right. Which you might think is a bad thing, but it's actually really fun, just breaking the game through how you build your unit. And I think the strategic combat is also pretty well designed too.
Cool. I gotta check it out. I hear like nothing but spectacular things about it. So.
Oh, so you've never played it before?
Mm-mm.
Man, I'm telling you, that tutorial will make you feel like you're a god until you get to the first stage. Now, the Vita version is a little easier, and it's not the best version. It runs kind of slow. I would highly recommend getting it digital.
I think it's
honestly.
the PSP version, right?
The PSP version, yeah. It's the same game. The only difference is they added Cloud and some other character in the place of.
No. Cloud was in the original PS1 version.
Oh, he was?
Yeah, he was. He's an optional unit. He's basically useless until you get the Buster Sword, and that's atop of this volcano for some reason. You need to get a unit to have the fine skill and go on the top. But once you get him, he's actually a pretty good unit. And he has access to all of his like limit break moves and stuff like that.
Yeah, I recommend playing the PS1 version though. Yeah. The PSP version runs really slow.
War of the Lions is such a mixed port for me. Like, it has a better translation than the PS1 version does, and it added these pretty cool animated cutscenes to it that has voice acting, so you can actually hear the Ram's voice and
I forgot about that.
Voice for the first time. And
yeah, I forgot about that.
I think the translation also does add to the story, seeing just how Shakespearean the story is. As you see how this story of two nations fighting over the crown, and seeing how this kid grew up around such intrigue, and how he got disillusioned with his family and then tried to strike on his own, and then basically try to do what he thinks is right, even though he's branded as a heretic for it. And then see all the twists and turns you see in Ram's story, and then see how he's actually the true hero of the story. And then you see the parallels between Delita and Ramza being interesting, because they were raised under the same man. But see how their stations led them to go take different paths. And it's a really great story. I think the Shakespearean and flowery translation does add to that element. But then you got the one stinker part of the port that makes it very hard to recommend the PSP version, which is the slowdown. That happens every time you do a special attack. And Final Fantasy Tactics is already a pretty slow game, even back in the PS1 version. But the slowdown in the PSP version just makes it almost unplayable, just because how slow it is.
Ironically enough, there is some kind of thing that some.
And then there's like some good additions they brought to the gameplay too. They added like the Dark Knight class to the game, which was pretty cool. But
yeah, there was something mentioned online that if you hack the game or if you put some kind of hack,
like there's a patch for the game online, but that really gets rid of the slowdown. But that's obtained through some questionable means, so I'm not saying you should do it, but you know.
I personally wouldn't hack my PSP either. I just heard that there is a way to fix the slowdown, but you got to go through hoops to be able to do it, which I'm not going to. I'd rather play a PS1 version.
So what's your favorite game, Sword?
You know what? I think, I don't know if I've said this before on the podcast or not, but I think if I had to choose probably one game that I think is super special to me, that I just love to tears, it's actually the Xenosaga trilogy as a whole, but I'd say that episode 3 is the best one, because that's not only where the story hits its peak, but also the gameplay is also super solid. Like, I truly, in my personal opinion, the Xenosaga trilogy has the best story for a video game, and one of the best, like, told stories of any medium that I've personally experienced. So out of all the games that I've played, like, that one has the most powerful, memorable, twisty and turny story that I've seen. It's just masterfully crafted. Even though it got cut short, they still managed to, like, work with what they did, and they did the best they could, and I still think they pulled it off. And I think 3 like just has so many great story moments and so many really great shocking revelations, and the ending is really powerful and emotional, and the gameplay is a lot more traditional compared to the first 2 ones. Like, it's got a pretty straightforward turn-based combat system, a pretty linear skill tree system, nothing like super remarkable in the gameplay, but it's still a fun game to play. And I enjoy I enjoy the combat system, and I did like leveling the characters, the skill line. But really what sells that game and what sells the Xenosaga trilogy as a whole is the amazing story. And I just think that I beat it years ago, and I still remember it like moment to moment. Like, I can name so many great moments in that whole story. So I think, you know, even though I love you know, plenty of other RPGs that are near and dear to my heart, like Final Fantasy X, for example, because that got me into RPGs, and I still think that stands the test of time too. But getting older and experiencing all these different games, my personal favorite would be the Xenosaga trilogy as a whole, but 3 in particular, because it's just so, like, it's like near perfect, honestly. And it's a shame that we'll probably never get that HD collection at this point. So in order for anyone to play, you gotta get out of PS2 if so many people even have one anymore, and you gotta buy all 3 of them, which is a bummer.
Well, here's the worst part about it. Recently had opportunity to do some valuable research, and it turns out in order to get all 3 games in total, you're going to spend $30 for the first game, between $50 and $70 for the second game, and the third game goes anywhere between $200 and $400.
Damn.
So in order to play the series, you're going to spend anywhere between $320 and $500. So if it's worth that much to you to play the third game and all 3, good luck to you.
Also buying a PS2 if you don't have your PS2 still.
And that's even finding one that's in good condition to play, because as these things get older, it's harder to find them. Now, this is being honest, I'm a big fan of the redesigned slim models of the PlayStation, but I've ran into some problems with the PS2. So if you're planning on getting one, these are 2 things I look out for. First, on the Slim, verify by testing the unit that if it gets hot. There are 3 models revisions of the Slim. I'd prefer you get the one that does not have the power brick outside of the unit. Get one that has an internal. That would be the last revision. That one gets least hot. It's the best model, and it doesn't have those ridges on the front of the system. So you'll recognize it. It's completely flat all around, the Slim model. The 7000 model of the Slims are notorious for overheating. So I'd avoid those unless you find a 7700 model that seems to work pretty good. You can find a few that are better built than others. The last revision model, the Slim, does not play every PS1 game. It's the worst model. For some reason, a lot of PS1 games don't work on it very well. So if you want one that's more compatible, get the 7701 revision model that does not overheat. So you have to test the overheating problem. The next thing, and people don't recognize this issue with the PS2, the Slim scratch disc to high hell. You need to test a PS1 game and a PS2 game and look at the disc. If it makes a perfectly circle scratch, do not buy it, because they're notorious for scratching disc, and it's not the laser that scratches it, it's the little laser ribbon that goes back and forth. Eventually it becomes loose and it will scratch games, so be very careful with that. I recommend getting the 3000 model, the PS2 Fat. They have the best internal parts. Weakest issue with the 3000 models are actually the laser, but it's typically not as common as you think. The worst models to buy are the 5000 models. They have the weakest internal parts and they have the loudest fans. So if you're looking for longevity, get the 3000 series model, and you should be pretty good to be able to play most of your games. The PS2 Fats are not known to scratch discs due to the fact they have that tray that the discs sit on, so they're further away from the laser. But the lasers tend to be weaker in the Fats and they tend to load slower. So it just comes down to, at that point, finding the best model. And those are the things I recommend watching out for.
I don't know if you guys can answer this question, but do you guys remember what was the first ever video game you ever played?
Ooh. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say, if I'm like really grasping at straws and see if I like really digging deep into the memory bank as far as I can go, I want to say that the first game I ever played was actually the original Mario game on the Nintendo system, like the original. Like it's
On the
so
NES?
simple, anyone can. Huh?
On the NES?
Yep. Yeah, the OG Mario. I think that was probably my first game that I played, and I played a lot of those platformers. Like, we had a Nintendo for a little while. We got like Contra. I think we had Mega Man. We had a couple others. Duck Hunt, which I enjoyed too, and so I had all those games. And then my Nintendo eventually died. It just got super old. So, but yeah, that was probably my first.
For me, it's probably Link to the Past, as far back as I can remember. That's probably my first video game. Though there's also this Game Boy game that was about Dragon Ball Z, where you run on Snake Way to get stronger. I don't really remember the title. I just remember playing that game a lot as a kid. But the first actual game I probably played is probably Link to the Past. But even then, I'm not exactly sure, since I played video games really young, so I can't really remember that far back, I say.
My answer is the same as Swords. As early as being 3 years old or 4 years old, the NES was pretty much only out for about 2 years, 3 years at the time. So the original game was a Super Mario Brothers. I played that a lot with my sister. Used to get mad whenever she would beat me and I would turn the game off. I always hear that story about that from my dad and my sister. So getting in a tantrum and losing and then turning the console off would be my way of getting back at them. But if I had to be honest with you, the game I played a lot with my dad, like a lot, because it's the one I remember most, is Tetris on the NES. I played that game like a religion. Like, Mario Brothers and Tetris were like the two side-by-side games that were like the start of my gaming hobby, I guess you could say. I think the NES really is sort of like a cornerstone of everyone's like pastime who was old enough to remember the NES, you know, or who was our age, I guess. But yeah, Mario Brothers for sure is like the grandfather of us when it comes to games. It still has a special place in my heart, like it always will. Like if ever I feel like a nostalgia when I want to just pop in the play the Super Mario Brothers game, I usually just turn on my Nintendo Switch or something and just go into the Nintendo virtual thing and play it whenever I want to play it. So that's that.
What other genres do you play, guys? Besides RPGs?
So I'm going to get this out of the way. I'm probably in the minority here. I could be wrong. So you guys can clarify it. I do play racing games. I'm going to go just get past that. Need for Speed, Hot Pursuit, stuff like that. I also play some action games, and I'm not the biggest fan of them, but I do have a few that I play. Killer is Dead, and I've gotten to Near Replicant, but the one that I think that I've really started enjoying more recently is visual novels. Play a lot more of those. I have a substantial collection of visual novels, so I'm playing currently, well, not right now, but a little while back I was playing Pierre Fiorte, which basically is sort of like a mafia-styled visual novel in the 1920s in Barcelona, which is a really good game. And alongside that was a game called Cafe Enchanté, which is about a girl whose grandparent passed away and left a business to her. But what's the spin on it is there's a door underneath the basement of the building that leads to video game worlds. One who is a demon who resides over the demon world, which is supposed to be a hint to the sky, and an angel who's fallen from the heavens who orders stuff on his smartphone, and the Headless Knight. So it's an interesting game, but I like those stories where it takes you to a whole other universe, a whole other world. And I've been exploring a lot more of those games, like Rise Zero and stuff like that, because it made me appreciate like stories that you could just enjoy from a visual standpoint with the story, you know? So that's really the main genre that I've been something alongside RPGs.
Now, for me personally, if you've been with this channel for a while, you probably already guessed what are the main genres I play. But besides role-playing games and strategy role-playing games, since those sort of count as RPGs though, I play a lot of action-adventure games. Strangely enough, you would think I wouldn't be all that into the mainstream AAA games, but I have played my fair share of those. Like, I played through all the Uncharted games. All the Uncharted games. I played through a few Call of Duties. World War is probably my favorite Call of Duty game. But I'd probably say my preferred genre is still like hack and slash games. Like the action games. The one Forsyth that he's probably not that big of a fan of. Most notable example probably being Devil May Cry. I've even made a video on Devil May Cry 1 through 4, including the reboot, which not many people liked in terms of the main Devil May Cry fan series, but I digress. Ninja Gaiden, which the original Ninja Gaiden on the Xbox is probably one of my favorite action games. It's a toss-up between which do I like the original Ninja Gaiden more or Devil May Cry 3, but those two games are still really good. And even though they're both action games, they do have different styles to it that you can still enjoy them as action games individually. Even the more less known action games like Killer's Dead, like Forrest said, Wet, which isn't really good, but I still were able to enjoy Wet even then, because I just do really like action games a lot. And then you got Metal Gear Rising and Bayonetta, which was pretty fun as well. So as you can see, I'm a person who really do enjoy these high-octane action games. Besides those, I'm also, I guess you could say I'm also into visual novels as well. Like, I'd probably say the most premier visual novel I played that I think is like my favorite is probably between Tsukihime and Fate Stay Night, which strangely enough still isn't officially localized. What the hell is that?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I bought
you know what's the most
copies.
You know what's the most funniest thing? You know Steins Gate?
Mm-hmm.
You know how the original Steins Gate visual novel, its sequel, Steins Gate Zero, is localized? But you know what's also localized on the Steins Gate side? The dating sim. The joke dating sim game.
Yep.
And yet that's localized, yet we still don't have Fate Stay Night or Tsukihime. We still don't even know if we're going to get the Tsukihime remake here. We're getting, we're getting Melty Blood type Lumina.
Well, we're not getting a physical copy of it though.
Yeah, but at least we're getting it. We don't even know if we're gonna. We still don't know if we're getting the Tsukihime remake.
The thing about it is, I actually pre-ordered 2 copies of the Tsukihime limited edition. One for my friend and one for myself. And it sucks that it's going to be still in Japanese only.
But yeah, I love both of these visual novels. They're so good.
Yeah, I want to play it, but it sucks that I never will be able to. Not in English.
I've also played the Ace Attorney games. I've played all of the Ace Attorney games, I think. Except for Investigation 2, since that wasn't ever officially localized.
Did you pick up the new one that came out?
Yeah, I have it right here. I haven't actually played the Great Ace Attorney yet, but I will after I play through Scarlet Nexus, since I haven't played Kasani's story yet.
Yeah, I actually picked that up too, and hopefully once I finish the Great Ace Attorney trilogy, I'll get around to playing that. Because right now, I have so many I need to get to, like Grandia HD Collection. I need to go through Grandia 1 and 2 at some point, and maybe go back and finish up Shining Tears. So it's a lot that I have to get to if I get back to visual novels. Especially Rise Zero. Rise Zero, I need to play that also. Forgot about that one.
I played through Kawate Choji, which was a really good, I guess you could say, indie visual novel game, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah. Gee, I wonder who said they were going to finish Kawate Choji and haven't yet. Sword. Sword.
Shamelessly looks away.
I'm gonna finish it, man. I promise. Been 4 years.
Wait, it's been how long?
I remember like 2 or 3 years ago. I was like, oh, I'm gonna finish it before the end of this year.
Yeah.
And that led to the next year, and then it went to the year after. Then.
But yeah, I like visual novels a lot. I think they're an interesting genre.
I was gonna say it depends, right? Because that's not every visual novel is something you play. Because there's like different types.
Yeah, I've also played Steins Gate. I think Steins Gate and Steins Gate Zero is really good. If you guys think I was poking fun at Steins Gate, I'm just poking fun of how we got the dating sim over official Fate Stay Night. And
now where did the dating sim come out? Is that for the Steam only, right?
Huh?
Is that for Steam only, the dating sim one, Steins Gate? Oh, I don't remember. I know I've heard of it, but
I don't know. I just saw like there was a dating sim one that seems like a joke game.
Yeah, I know one you got Steins Gate Elite.
Oh yeah, we also got another version of Steins Gate. I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's the anime version, which basically takes the anime and takes a spin on it. They even got back the original cast that worked on the original animation to make the animations extra for this game, which is just bizarre.
Yeah, because like the original Steins Gate has a pretty, what's a good way to describe the character?
They're really good, even back when it came out.
Yeah,
it was really solid. So, but yeah,
Tsukihime,
guys, Tsukihime. Where is Tsukihime?
Not in the West. That's where.
So I take it you're importing it, Peter?
Yeah. even though I can't read Japanese.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
It's a bummer to hear that only like CL and Arkwood's route is going to be released first, and Akaha Hisue Kohaku's route, I think it's planned for later, but it is.
I think it's a DLC for the game.
I think.
Oh.
I think they might make it like how in the Face Day Night, the Vita version of the game, how each route is their own individual games. I think.
I got you. Yeah, I could. Okay, because if they do that, I'll go ahead and import them also. You know, it'd be really funny. We go through all the trouble of importing them, and the next thing you know, they come out with a Tsukihime definitive edition that it's English release.
But then apparently, like Arkwood and CL's route, it's probably, I think Nasu said it's going to be twice as long as the original. So that'll be interesting to see.
I guess we just have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, if they give us that really crappy anime of Tsukihime.
There is no anime. What are you talking about?
Hey,
what are you talking
as much as you don't like that anime, it exists.
It doesn't.
It exists. You know what I love about the cover of the anime? Is how they use the visual novel art for the inside of the case, but then the actual animation looks nothing like the visual novel art that's on the cover. Like it's like
even then,
like
the visual novel art of Tsukihime looks pretty rough given its age.
Yeah, but back then it was good. Okay, the anime doesn't exist.
Yeah, the anime doesn't exist. A genre, I'd probably say that I was interested before, but interested in now is probably fighting games, strangely enough. If you see my Twitter, you can see how often I posted about Guilty Gear Strive. I would probably say I'm only into fighting games just because I have a friend that's into fighting games that got me to play these games. Because before, like, my last fighting game that I ever played was Persona 4 Arena, the original, not Persona 4 Arena 2. Though I did bought that, but I didn't play it extensively. Though I've heard that the shadow characters are pretty bullshit. But yeah, these past 2 years I've been pretty big into playing Grand Blue Fantasy Versus and then Guilty Gear Strive. I've actually gotten like 200 hours of Guilty Gear Strive now, somehow. I don't know how. And if you're wondering who I main in Guilty Gear Strive, I mostly main Milia. As for the second character I main, to some people's dismay, it's Mei. So how about you, Sword?
Really, the other genre that I'm mainly drawn to outside of RPGs is probably horror games. I really love just being on the edge of my seat. I love the chills that I get. I love the anticipation of like what's lurking around the next corner. And I think the ones that stick out to me are both Silent Hill 2 and also 3. I love them about equally. I think they're both equally amazing and they're both masterpieces for, you know, their own reasons. But I really just I like Fatal Frame. I like Evil Within, not as much, but it's a fun game. But overall, yeah, I think I play action games from time to time, but only once in a while. But really, my collection of horror games has gotten a lot bigger, and I think that they're capable of telling stories that other genres just can't. Like they have that luxury of telling like some of the most disturbing type of stories that you can imagine. Like even the Silent Hill series in general has some really disturbing imagery and tough subject matter that other genres of games just won't even dare to touch. So that's one of the things I think is unique about horror games, and I've just become a big fan of the genre over the years. And again, like I said, even though I'm nowhere near as into it as I am with RPGs, that is the other genre that I'm really into. I just really enjoy them for, you know, being on like making the hairs on my arms stand up and all that stuff. So that's pretty much what I gravitate to outside of RPGs.
What else can we talk about for this 1 year anniversary?
I did have one more in mind. I was thinking maybe what's your like favorite game series and what is your favorite game from that series?
Chaos. Abyss of Berseria.
Honestly, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
That's for literally. I don't even have anything different to say to that. I mean, I might have a more of a soft spot for Abyss because that was my first Tales game.
Yeah.
But in terms of like my preference for them, like Abyss is my favorite, and Berseria is tied with it. Like not better or
Yeah.
worse, but on par.
Like, we talk about Tales the last 3 episodes, so we probably won't say much here. But
Yeah, we pretty much said everything that needs to be said.
But Tales to me is just like, it's the perfect blend of action and RPG in my opinion. It like has all the great elements of RPG to me, the story, the characters, the character building, well, not the character leveling, and as well as the good parts of a action game to it, in terms of having characters that are a lot of fun to play. Character movesets that feel very personalized, how they fight, and that's able to express their personalities through combat. And it just has a lot of interesting action combat mechanics that's interesting in most of the games. Like, the thing that can improve is probably the music, but besides that, I don't really have much to complain about Tales. Especially like the way how they do their stories, in terms of how they take a very familiar subject and deconstructs it.
That's actually always something I think was underappreciated, was how they handle all the different tropes that we see in other RPGs. Like almost all the time, like they'll start off like the prologue is like, I've seen this 100 times, but then it like brutally like rips them apart and then turns all the tropes on their head and makes them into something totally different.
Yeah.
Like Tales of the Abyss, for example, you know, does have like, oh look, the Chosen One.
The prophecy in the stone. Oh,
like
maybe
all that stuff. You're like,
maybe the prophecy in the stone is not that good.
And then like all the revelations make everything totally different from what it seemed.
Yeah. How about you, Forrest? What's your favorite series?
Favorite series? This is really tough. Does it have to be RPGs?
No. For us, it's just Tales because that's our favorite series, but it doesn't have to be RPGs.
Okay. So honestly, my favorite series would probably, the games I put the most hours into would probably be Need for Speed. I would say Need for Speed 3 Hot Pursuit, Need for Speed High Stakes, Need for Speed Porsche Unleashed, Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2, Need for Speed Most Wanted, Need for Speed Carbon, Need for Speed Underground, and to some extent Need for Speed the 2010/2021 remake, I guess. And Need for Speed Heat, I did like that one. I sunk a lot of hours into those games. Like, I'm a huge fan of Need for Speed, probably more so than RPGs, because before I played RPGs, I played a lot of Need for Speed games. I sort of am one of those fans of like the older Need for Speeds. I prefer the PS1 and the PS2 Need for Speed games over the modern Need for Speeds. I do still play them, but they're nowhere near as good as the older ones. I have so much hours synced into like every single game on the PS2 and PS1. Like High Stakes, I used to take the memory cards and you could do pink slip races where you could take a car and race around the track. And I would cheat the game to where I would take 2 memory cards, have the same file on both, intentionally race around the track, leave the car there and win the race, and then take the other car and finish the track race as second place, and will pink slip the car. So I would just redo that over and over and over again, and then like buy the vehicles, and then I would just take the vehicles and sell them and make so much cash so I could build any car I wanted and like all the championships and stuff. That was so much fun. Learning like little intricacies about those Need for Speed games on PS1. and this is coming from somebody who wasn't a huge fan of EA, which I'm not a fan of Electronic Arts, but I'll admit those games have has left a huge lasting impression on me because they were to me were some of the most fun I've ever had growing up. So yeah, but surprisingly enough, it's not an RPG that's my favorite series of games. It's actually Need for Speed. I had like really thinking about it because it's the games I sunk a lot of hours into. And as a core group of all the people here, I'm probably the only one in the group, like being honest, that plays more non-arcadey style racing games. I'm pretty certain I am. I don't think because I've yet to find one racing game that I've asked to play, and you guys are like, nope. I'm pretty sure I'm the minority here, so yeah.
What would you say is like a series that you're very nostalgic to, that you keep coming back to? And it still has to be a living series right now.
It has to be one that's still active.
Yep.
So
For me, it's Legend of Zelda. I grew up with Ocarina of Time and Link to the Past, and you know, I probably have more memories of Ocarina of Time than Link to the Past just because I was really young when I played Link to the Past. But I still have really good memories of playing for each Zelda game, and I'm still a fan of each Zelda game. I don't think there's really a bad Zelda game, just like how there is, in my opinion, a bad Tales game. Like an actual bad Tales game. Like,
I don't know.
Like even Zestiria, I would say is pretty weak, but I wouldn't really say it's like Devil May Cry 2 tier.
Okay, we're not going there.
Yeah. Or Xena Saga 2 tier.
Mm,
In terms of gameplay.
I do think Zestiria is a bad game. I'm sorry.
I don't
I'm
think...
sorry.
I
I'm sorry.
think-
Wait. Hey, I spent $200. I got the collectors and the PS3 version when they came out at launch. So when you spend that kind of money, yeah.
I've played worse games than Zestiria.
I don't know, man. I can't stomach it. I just can't. That water temper can go fall off a cliff.
But,
Like I said, I have a see. The reason I didn't say much about the Tales games when they were talking earlier, I have my issues with some Tales games. I'd rather not. I'm not gonna go into that again. But
let's see.
yeah.
But yeah, I think Legend of Zelda is like the series I keep coming back to. For just like they're fun games too, but I'll probably say nostalgia does play a big role to it.
No, it's a good series to be nostalgic for. I agree with that. For me, like I don't know if Sword can kind of understand where I'm coming from. I think I love the Ratchet and Clank games. I mean, if there's any doubt in my mind of a series that I could literally just say, you know what, I'm in nostalgic for something that's like platformer adventure, just a laid back story. It's just fun to get into and play. I've always felt the Ratchet and Clank games were always easy to access. You know, you could just play them, go to a world, finish it up, go to the next world when you have time. And the stories are so massive. And they're all interconnected. Like I had recently finished A Rift Apart and loved it. I platinumed the game. I actually 100% platinum that game because I had so much fun playing it. Thank God I platinumed it because Last Rebellion can no longer be the thorn on my side of being the only game I platinum. It was one of the worst games I ever played in my life. But it's just such a fun series to me. I always just enjoyed the worlds, the characters, and just the overall like presentation of all the games. And it seems like every game that Insomniac makes in the series, with the exception of a few, have always gotten better and better to almost like a Pixar-like style of storytelling in the way that his characters are designed and all that stuff. So that is a series I'm nostalgic for. Like I would never tire of playing a Ratchet and Clank game. I've always had fun with them.
How about you, Sword?
You know what? I mean, I am nostalgic for Final Fantasy because again, like Final Fantasy X was my first one. But I think the most nostalgic one for me is actually also Tales because I played Tales of the Abyss way back when I was like a freshman in high school, so I was like 13, 14 years old, and I just got into it like really quick, and I've been a fan ever since, and I am to this day. So if there's any series I find myself consistently playing, it's probably that, because it's just near and dear to me. I just love everything. I love the stories, characters, and gameplay, and it's just something that, you know, when I replayed Tales of the Abyss like a year or two ago, and I was just reliving all those memories again. I just loved re-experiencing it. So I just have a fondness for Tales. So I think that's probably what it is.
I probably would say Tales too, if I didn't play Zelda when I was a kid.
Mhm.
Like Zelda is a lot of fun. It's a really fun adventure. Just the classic adventure, Rise to Hero stuff. And it has really cool puzzles for most of the game at least. And the combat, while simple, was still effective. And the characters, while simple, was still effective.
Yeah, sometimes there's nothing wrong with simplicity.
Yeah. And there's always like Zelda to me is just such a comfy game to come back into. What's your least favorite thing in your favorite genre?
Like least favorite game in the genre?
No, your least favorite aspect in your genre.
Yeah, like what's like a recurring element in your favorite genre that annoys you?
You know what's the thing that's the most annoying now playing RPGs?
What?
The time. And how we like sometimes you don't have enough time to play all the RPGs you want now. And RPGs
it's true.
Are
yeah, there's always something coming out.
Yep.
For me, it's actually the God. Okay, I'm gonna say this now. I'm only gonna use this word because it's the only word I can come up with, and I don't quite prefer using this word. I'm only gonna use it just because it's the easiest for me to say it. I don't want anyone in this group right now. This group, what I'm saying is the score we're in. I don't want you guys getting mad.
Okay.
So I'm going to say this right now. I'm using the word, and I don't care. I hate some of the cliche storylines these games use nowadays that almost reflect on similar games I've played. When you play numerous amount of RPGs, you start to see stories that take stories that have done in other games that are very similar, and it's harder to find something that's more original. So for me, I have a lot of I guess when you play a lot of RPGs, you start to see the stories that seem like you've seen them before, the same tropes, the same. You start to get more. You know what I mean? You dig a bit deeper to find a game that's unique and does something different. I mean, it's okay. You're gonna run across a game that takes ideas from other games, but as long as they find a way to utilize its own ideas on top of it that makes it different, that's fine. You know, like I'll give you an example. Steamboat Chronicles on PS2. That's a unique, interesting game. Like this kid who goes into wanting to be this in the military with these steam bots, and he has to convince his parents that he wants to join in this sort of cool, like military steam thing. They look like mechs, but they're steam run. It's an interesting game. It's actually quite expensive now. But that game to me is like unique because it's nothing like it. It's nothing like a series where you're dealing with steam mechs in a sense. But, you know, so I have a thing about RPGs where if the game has such a very cliche storyline, unless it does something completely different that makes it unique, that makes it its own thing, it's hard for me to justify a lot of times finishing it, or if I do finish it, not enjoying it. When you start to play as many RPGs as we play, you unfortunately start having more bias. Maybe I shouldn't think that way, but it's just when you play so many, you have to take in consideration, okay, does it do enough to make me sort of overlook these similarities? Because other games try to emulate RPGs. Like a lot of games follow the Persona 5 route where they want to have the school setting and like the summoning of personas, but in their own sort of way, or mostly the school setting aspect. Like it's done over and over and over again. So a lot of times you're just like, oh my god, I've seen this so many times.
Trails of Cold Steel.
Yeah. Another series we haven't mentioned much recently today, but yes, good example. So what I mean, cliched ideas in RPGs is bugs the hell out of me.
I thought you
And
liked
so it
Trails.
makes-
I thought you liked Trails.
No, I love. So here's the thing, you're right. It is one of those cliches. I'm not gonna sit here and lie. I can't believe it's this word, so don't be mad, Bison, please. But I know that deep down it's still a good game, even though it's cliche. So a cliche good game, I'm okay with because it does something different in its own way. But then there are those games that are cliche.
You heard
So-
it right. You heard it right, folks. He hates Dragon Quest.
God, yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah, I hate to
Yeah,
say it. I'm not a Dragon Quest fan. I hate the art style of Dragon Quest.
Yeah.
I hate Dragon Ball. I hate Blue Dragon. If it's got that art style, Dragon Quest Builders, you name it. Nope. No.
Oh, you know what's another thing I hate in RPGs besides not having enough time to play them? Like
What's
like a legit complaint now, rather than just
Mhm.
like a cheeky one. Quests that requires a certain item that's RNG based. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about, Sword and Xenoblade 2.
Don't even get me fucking started.
Wait a minute. I never had that problem in Xenoblade 2. Oh, you mean like getting your certain character? Yeah, that's different.
No,
Yeah,
no. Getting a certain character, gotcha thing. I made my peace with that. It's like the side quest that requires you to get an item from this node that's randomly generated, and you have to.
Oh yeah, no, I never had that.
That's like spend an hour to get the item you want for your side quest.
I never had that problem.
I hate that shit.
I never had that problem. I got it immediately.
I don't mind going back to previous areas if the item's there 100% of the time. Because, hey, it allows me to go back and grind on some enemies. And if the combat system is good, I have a fun time. But when you have this system that's like total RNG base, and you have to go through it like multiple times just to get the item you need, that's really, really tedious to me.
I wish I could say I'm in the same boat with you on that one, but when I did that round of going and getting that item, I got it on the first try. So I don't know.
That's because it's totally random.
This is totally random.
Wait, you guys had that problem?
Yeah.
So Ward, you had that problem?
Yeah, I mean, if you got on the first try, that's because the luck was in your favor. That's all.
So wait, am I like the 1%?
Probably.
I don't even mind. I don't even mind Xenoblade 2 having a gacha system because like it's not really a gacha system since it doesn't actually cost real money. But I don't mind it your blades being randomized every time just because it makes a fresh play for each time. It is a pain if you want to get 100% of the blades in one playthrough though.
You could say it's a virtual gacha.
No. If it was a real gacha game, you have to level up each of your blades individually with resources that's time gated.
Yeah,
because the real gacha games aren't just money sinks; they're time sinks too.
Yeah,
I know. I played gachas. I played FGO. I played Genshin Impact. I'm in gacha hell, so I know the hell that is gacha.
So I take it you love gacha games then.
I don't know.
Okay, maybe you like to be in hell with gacha games then? Do you like torturing yourself?
I don't know. I wouldn't say so.
It sounds like it. Maybe just a little bit.
How about you, Sword? What's your least favorite thing in your favorite genre?
Well, as far as JRPGs go, honestly, this is something that they almost never get right. Is because we're talking about quests. It's actually side quests in general, because 95% of the time in JRPGs, the side quests boil down to kill 10 of this, get 10 of that. It really just boils down to errand boy side fetch quests. They're so annoying. Like every time I see an exclamation point on the map, I talk to someone, and then it's like, oh hey, I can't pick up my medicine. Can you go pick it up for me? Okay, you go to the item shop, come back with it. Okay, here you go. Here's some money. Or oh look, there's 10 rabbits. Can you kill 10 rabbits for me? Okay, kill 10
Like-
rabbits. Come back.
To me, the killing X amount of monsters isn't too annoying if the combat system is actually good.
Yeah, but in terms of like quest variety,
Yeah.
there's, you know, I mean, it's just there's nothing substantial. It really just boils down to, you know, checking off boxes on your list. It really just boils down to like you're doing them because they're there, not because you like actually enjoy doing them. Really, like
Well,
if,
if
I mean,
you-
sometimes if the rewards are substantial enough, you might feel more inclined to do them. But like, I feel like this is something that Western RPGs get right over JRPGs. Is that like in Oblivion, for example. Like all the side quests are interesting because they have like little self-contained stories, so I actually enjoy doing them. Whereas in JRPGs, like with the exception of I guess Yakuza, where the sub stories are really entertaining, like in games like Xenoblade, Final Fantasy 15, you know, all those just have the same boring MMO-esque side quests. Like for some reason they just can't get them right. I don't know why. I don't know.
Then you might want to stay away from Fairy Tail because that game is notorious for side quests repetitiveness.
Well, what do you think of Xenoblade 2 DLC then? In terms of you getting like the community.
Have you played Torn of the Sword?
I played like half of it, and then like that's the thing. Like I was doing all the side quests I can because I heard there was a point where you have to get your community up to a certain level. So I'm like doing them out of obligation. You know, I'm doing them because they're there and I have to.
Yeah, but each of them is like with NPC, and they have their own story, kind of.
Yeah, it's better. It's better in that, but like I think Torna is kind of weird because the side quests are better than they are in the base game for the most part. But like you actually like they're basically mandatory because you need the community level. So it's like it acts like a wall.
No.
Interesting. Okay. Well, all right. There actually is one thing I didn't mention that I don't think I see this very often anymore, but as a bonus one for me, you know, the thing that annoys me, and I've only seen this in like one specific series of games, and that's actually like when RPGs have a time limit, like some of the old Artillery games. Like I don't particularly.
I don't have a problem with that. But yeah,
you do or don't have a problem with it.
Don't. If it's done.
I'm
well.
not going to necessarily say
if it's done well. I don't think there's a problem having a time limit.
No. Like I said, I don't particularly have like an issue with it. But the reason I bring it up as a bonus is because I have a friend who refuses. I mean, like I can literally sit here and show him gameplay, and he's all excited. But the minute I mention time limit, he literally stops, drops, and rolls away from the game. Won't even no longer touch it or have any interest in it. I remember like playing Verona, the remake of Artillery Verona, and thinking I got like the ending, like I did everything right. I come to find out that I ran out of my days and it gave me a bad ending. I didn't know that till like 2 months later. And I'm like,
the game tells you what you need to do for each assignment.
Do you think I can remember all that in one go?
It tells you in the upper right or left corner.
Oh, it doesn't. Okay, maybe it does, but still, I've yet to get the good ending in a row. Peter, I know what you're thinking, Peter. I know what you're thinking.
Like in the Artillery games specifically, I don't have a problem with time management, especially since
I don't.
Like it gives you the game outright tells you what you need to do in this specific.
It does.
And then it gives you all the tools for you to achieve it, and it just lets you go to it. It's like
have you beaten both the original Rona and the remake?
I've only played the original, but I heard the remake is easier than the original.
I don't know.
Like, what I love about the time management based Artillery games is how open-ended they are, just because of the time limit. Like they give you a specific goal you have to work to, and they give you all these tools and multiple ways in order to achieve it. And it's up to you to figure out and strategize in terms of how to best use your time, noting which ingredient you need, exploring around to see where those ingredients are, and then thinking of which place you think is the most optimal to get the most ingredients. And then using those ingredients in a pretty well done, open-ended alchemy system. It's like the Atelier games are so open-ended, so well done with how they do time management. Just because, like, you know what's the most annoying thing about time management?
No, what is that?
You have to do a specific thing in one linear way under a certain time limit.
Now there is a game that does.
What makes the Atelier games fun is how there's multiple ways to get to your goal.
Well, there is actually a series that made by the same, company that actually does have a time limit that unfortunately isn't all that great, which is one I think Knights of Azure 2.
I'm saying that if you can play for Persona, you can play for Atelier. I think the Atelier...
Yeah, but Persona hides its time. It's sort of embedded
what do you
in
mean it hides its time?
Because it's embedded in the days. No, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just saying it does a good job of making it not seem like there is a time limit, even though there is, clearly. I just said there is. I'm just saying it does a good job of hiding it.
Did you play for Persona 4 and 5 where they actually tell you how much time you have each day?
Yes. Yeah, the whole like full moon thing in 3 and the whole I get it. I'm just saying like they do a good job of hiding it. It doesn't feel like it's like you living every day. Like at the end of the week, I got to pay my bill at the end of the week. You know what I mean? It's like a time limit. Like it's sort of like that. It's like it's there. It's not like it's just it does a good job of hiding it. It doesn't feel like I'm stressing out to try to, get all my school assignments done so I can go to the dungeon and grind and get to the area where I can fight the boss before the moon, for the full moon happens in Persona 3, or like when it rains, you crazily in Persona 4. Like I get it, but I enjoyed that though. That's the thing. Like you enjoy doing assignments and social linking with. Okay, now I'm not gonna say enjoying social links because I never did all of them. So let me just be honest. And of course, fighting the side quest monsters. So
I'm just saying that time management as a system is fun, at least to me. I think
no. I mean, I bring it up because I know some people don't like it, and I think, like you said, if a game does it right,
yeah,
it can be fun, and I would agree. Persona to me does time management right, but in some ways, Atelier just depends on the game. I think it's a game by game basis because some have limited time management, meaning that some part of the game is time management and the rest of it isn't. Then some games don't have it, like the Atelier Ryza games, and then some games are full-fledged. The whole game is time management.
I play the ones that's like full-fledged time management. I didn't play any of the PS4 Atelier games, so I don't know.
Yeah, they're not time management. I mean, Sophie's time management to a point. The painting one, I think, is time management for 30 days. Like the first month of the game is time management. Yeah, after that, it's no longer.
Like I played for Eternal Rorona, Tortury, Memoru, both Dust games, and I had a lot of fun doing time management in the game. It was a lot of fun exploring, to figuring out where the greens where you need, getting a clear goal, and and just the game saying, hey, you know what you have to do. It's up to you to get to it, and and you can save multiple times.
No. I mean, that's the thing. Once you get into like the mechanics of the Atelier games, specifically like Rorona and Memory, like it can be a lot of fun because you're like micromanaging, scavenging items and then having to go back to the cauldron and have to combine items to be able to battle stronger enemies at night or depending on what you need to do. So no, I get it, but you gotta invest and be into that sort of thing. And I know some people may be like, oh my God, it's just too much micromanaging. You have to do this and having to save your shop like in Rorona, and like, it's like, there is some fun to be had. But I think the reason the Ryza games like Ryza 1 and 2 is so popular is because it doesn't have that time management. What it does is it goes more of an adventurous story, like exploring the world, going from an island, a backwatered island with a farm to like a major city sort of thing.
But you know what's the one negative part of it?
What's that?
It's really linear.
Yeah, it doesn't have freedom where you can go around and grind and collect items, and you don't have a purpose for the world that you're in. It's sort of like you're moving from one location to another. So yeah, the series does take a step back in that regard. Something that I think was really cool about Liddy and Sueli, like that game had all these paintings. You can go and explore these different worlds and grind and find items specific to the paintings that you're in and switching between the characters, because both Liddy and Sueli play differently. Like that was really cool about that game, So yeah.
Like
I mean,
like it was linear. Like Ryza was linear in its area progression as well as the goal progression. One thing I missed in the time-based games, because like it depends on the game if the area progression was linear or not, but there was always this open-endedness in its goal, and I liked how the game like gave you the tools you need and gave you multiple ways in order to achieve said goal.
So I guess I see what you're saying now. So because of the time management, there was more freedom to how you achieve that goal.
Yeah.
Versus like, I guess a game that's sort of linear, straight to the point. You know what to expect. You just follow said things that are required from you to meet that goal, and you can just continue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, yeah. I mean, if you want a challenge, that's where the older Telltale games are good to play, because they give you more. You sort of have to micromanage, do things, but you have the freedom of not achieving the goal and getting one of the joke endings or getting a bad ending, because it's your choice if you want to do that. But ultimately, the goal is to do everything you possibly can to get to your next objective in order to continue saving Barona's alchemy place, and then Atelier. So I mean, yeah, I see your point. I just only brought it up as a bonus because I know some people don't like time management. So
yeah, you want to add anything, Sort? Sort?
No.
Okay.
I think we pretty much covered it. You guys pretty much covered everything.
For the last question, what made you want to go into YouTubing?
Honestly, for me, it was there were a couple of YouTubers that I followed for a long time, and I wanted to be a game reviewer, just like the people that I was watching. I don't remember who I was watching at the time exactly because I was still really young. That was a long time ago. But I just remember being so enamored with like different critics that I would follow on YouTube. Not professional critics either, just like random people who would do video game reviews. And I'm like, oh, I want to do that. So I got out a video camera, tripod, and I would just record the game and talk about it. That's pretty much what I did.
Hey, you know what's the funny thing? I've been recommended your old videos in my YouTube.
Oh yeah, the Roddy Stories one, right?
The Stories ones, and the folklore, PS3 game too.
And sad part is I've been recommending your Roddy Got a Stories review too recently. I don't know why.
So weird and random.
And it's really funny because it's like the webcam one. It's not even your more recent one where you actually have a capture card. Like every one of the videos I see in my YouTube feed is just the one that has the webcam. You like just pointing it at the TV screen, and then you just talk.
It's so weird. Like of all the ones to recommend, like why that one? YouTube.
For me, it's similar to what Sword said. There was a lot of interesting YouTubers that I was interested in that like were able to express what made the games good or bad. I think that was really interesting and I think the one I watch quite frequently was like the RPG Fanatic, but he doesn't do videos anymore, so yeah. Stuff like his videos and some other YouTubers made me want to make videos. But unlike Sword, I actually bought a capture card before I done the video, video recording. And then just from making videos, I was able to join this group of friends. So yeah, I still remember the video that got Shintai to invite me to the group. I think it was the Nier review I did like way back.
That was kind of like blew you up.
Yeah, it's just a video that Shintai contacted me through. So I don't think it's like much more popular than the other videos I've made during that. But it was a video that got him to interact with me, I think.
That's cool. What about you, Forrest?
Well, I lost my mom, and I decided, she passed away in '08, and I just wanted something to not think about losing my mother. So I saw people doing videos on YouTube, and I decided, let me go ahead and give it a shot. Unfortunately, looking at my old reviews, they're absolute trash. But how I ended up becoming a part of the group that we are now a part of was I did a video on a game review called Soul Nomad and the World Eaters. And I did get a lot of views on the video, but someone contacted me mentioning that they liked the review, thought it was interesting, was Shintai.
Oh, I know where this is going. I know where this is going.
Hold on. Okay, so Shintai followed, and I followed him, and then eventually we ended up getting in contact through Skype. I'm not exactly sure exactly how it happened, but it was in that sort of order. About 8 or 9 years later, literally almost a decade later, I find out the only reason that Shintai subbed to me was because he had pity.
Remember you said that?
The only reason. It wasn't because the review was great or because it was good. Because he had pity on my reviews. He thought, oh, they weren't that great. But, hey, good shot. What the fuck? So, yeah, my reviews weren't that great. But, say the least,
Yeah.
my reviews actually were better. As years went on, they did get better. They were considered. I had some videos that did over 1 million views. Some reviews that actually got thousands of views. So my videos did get better over time. But originally, they were piss poor. And Shintai gave pity on me. So there you go.
Don't worry. You probably took pity on our reviews.
Well, at least he never told you. He took pity on you. So be grateful for that. And Swart's video is just downright awesome. Okay, you put that camera in front of the video and let him go something about an aspect of the game, and it was worth getting popcorn out and just listening. The Sword got right to the point.
Those old videos are so fucking cringy.
No. See, here's the thing. They may seem cringy to you, but to me, whenever you went on a tangent and something that really, really bothered you, I enjoyed that because you spoke your mind. You didn't hide nothing back. You saw how other people may have had issue with it and complained about some of the most stupidest things, but you basically like you got to the point. You made it very clear why these arguments are invalid. Whenever you had those segments, I enjoyed watching those because you was, I wouldn't say you was on a rant, but it was sort of like you got tired of people just grouping the same problem as an issue when it's really not. And I enjoyed that. So, no, I actually enjoy your videos. It's sort of weird, like now, looking at 17 for the camera. I don't know how your camera captured the quality because I could never find a camera to do that. Your camera was pretty decent considering putting a camera in front of the TV. But that was so long ago. I mean, think about it. 2008 and 7, right? It's 2021.
I probably say like the most off-putting thing to hear in Sword's old videos is just the voice and how much it's changed throughout the years.
Yeah, Sword was way back then. Now Sword is way.
I literally was like, I think I was like 15 when I made my first video.
Yeah, 15 years old. My God, that shows how old we are. To think. It's just crazy, man. It's crazy. But here we are today. I no longer do videos. Find videos. Like my channel's gone. And that's just due to circumstance of change in life. I have other things and obligations I'd rather take care of.
I still want to make videos. I actually have a video plan. It probably be out by the time this podcast comes out. It's the Yakuza video. And don't worry, we'll probably do a podcast about Yakuza again. I just want to try to do a video about the Yakuza series. At least the ones I played in 2020, since I played quite a bit of it. But yeah, I still have fun making videos. It's just like a hard time. I have a hard time articulating my thoughts well. That's why it takes so long for me to make a actual video.
Another reason I've actually stopped making videos, and this is something to do with time is one of the reasons. The biggest reason I stopped, because YouTube now has become this sort of almost like it's no longer YouTube, the YouTube we knew. Like, you upload a video, it was you. You know, people came to you for your videos. More genuine. You know, people actually came for your channel to hear your expression on stuff you make. It didn't seem like there was all this negative aspect of YouTube that was out there. Now it's just, you're fighting amongst people just to get views. There's so many, you know, correctness in video gaming now. There's so many commercials and ads, people pushing these ads on their videos in introductions. There's no like doing the videos just to do the videos. It's not like everything seems business savvy on YouTube now. Everyone got the one up somebody else on their video production value. It's like the enjoyment I had on YouTube isn't the same. It felt like back when we started, it was like the golden age of YouTube. It was like, you know, you just had fun doing it. I don't really get the same impression with new YouTube now. I don't get the same joy out of it that I used to get. Because it's changed so much. There's so much more negative press around the gaming media now. You know, and it's harder for your videos to get more exposure to people. It's just so different now. It's sort of draining in a way. And now you're forced to have ads on your videos, whether you monetize them or not. So that means if you upload a video that you don't have monetized, it's still gonna have a bunch of ads on it. So it's just like, you try to be the one guy who don't have ads on my videos. I have no ads. You have to worry about it. That's not something I would cater to. And then you got ads on your videos because it's YouTube. So it's, yeah.
As for sore reason for not making videos, I can guess why. Technical problems, right, buddy?
Oh yeah, always.
Yep.
So what is this technical issue? I mean, is it computer related, or is it the type of computer
thing?
Yep.
And it's like whenever I manage to fix one thing, like 8 more problems show up, and I'm like, ah, fuck it.
So what kind of computer do you have?
I got a Mac, Apple Mac.
Never mind.
Okay,
Swore, what you need to do is get you a good i5 computer around $600 and use that as your dedicated recorder. That's it. Let that be the only thing you use it for. You can find you a pretty good i5 processor that's going to have more than enough RAM to run and record footage. You don't have to spend a whole lot of money. But I think you'll solve all your problems if you just get you a nice i5, Intel, or AMD processor.
Well, I think that's all the time we have today. Especially since my headset's about to run out of batteries.
Mine already did. I got it plugged up, hardwire.
Okay. Well, hope you guys enjoyed this 1-year anniversary video. Probably would have arrived earlier if I didn't get sick, but...
Oh, hold on. Before you go, how many episodes did we do so far?
15? 14?
It's not bad.
Yeah. It used to be... Do you remember when it used to be a bi-weekly one? But then we moved it to a monthly? And then it's like, I don't know. It's whenever we have time now.
Pretty much.
Well,
yeah.
I know with this whole like pandemic, everything sort of changed, and like Swore was really busy. I was working 2 jobs at the time, I think. So it's sort of like, it just sort of was just chaos. Yeah.
But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is Peter47890 Sirus signing off.
Take care, everyone.
Peace.